film as well.
Again, good morning ladies and gentlemen. We're here at the last YouTube and I just thought we'd start off just by referencing the wonderful piece behind us here. You can just tell us the name of that particular piece.
Yeah, this piece is called Swirling Mandala. It has also been made as a larger work. It's up in South Melbourne.
Yes, you did say last night that that was a smaller version of a much larger work. Now, the steel, we referenced, or spoke about previously about the steel core 10, and I wanted to just talk about the materials of that, and then we'll start to talk a little bit about the work over in Singapore and what happens when work isn't conserved properly, because I know that in our first video you made mention the fact that Brisbane is looking after very well the continuous division, and I think it's a good homily to be talking about, well, what does happen when things aren't looked after properly. So if you can just tell us about the core ingredients of core 10.
Yeah, well, so I've used core 10 steel now for about 37 years. Actually, I think I can say I popularised it as a material in Australia because it's been used a lot by architects as well. Yeah. Core 10 steel's got a stainless steel content and a copper content in it as well. Yeah. So what happens is that the mould steel, which makes up most of it, tends to rust away, and then you get a matrix forming of the stainless and the copper to some extent, and that sort of stops the rusting through. It doesn't stop it altogether, but it stops it pretty well. It's pretty effective, but at the same time, probably in wetter environments, including Brisbane, it's always giving it a bit of extra protection. Now, luckily up in Brisbane, Peter Maxwell, who I think is one of the best, you'll be pleased to hear me saying this, but one of the best conservators in Australia, he's been involved with a program of looking after my piece. And that piece is it's 3mm steel, so it's not as thick as some of the steel I use later on. So far as I know, the work's actually in very good condition. There has been a piece in Singapore recently, even though I gave them conservation advice on it and they haven't done it, and it's actually ended up with some holes in it, and we're just looking at it right now, whether we can repair it or not. And
to give people at home an idea of the value of some of these pieces in today's market, and you know, well, I'm not putting a value on the Brisbane piece, but you were telling me that when they looked at its replacement value as such on the open market, they were very surprised as to what the actual value of the thing was. And I think you were mentioning a figure of around $500,000 or something similar to that.
That's a piece in Singapore, yeah. And look, the Brisbane work, exactly what it sold back in '88, I can't exactly remember, but look, it was only, I think it was perhaps high teens, mid-20s it might have sold for. And it's always a bit difficult to determine these things, but I think the Brisbane work now, you know, I don't mind saying, I think the value on the sort of art market, whatever, would be sort of, I don't know, somewhere around 250 to 350,000.
Yeah, and it's a good return for the rate.
Yeah, they've done a lot for them.
Which I'm sure Sally Ann Atkinson will be very happy to see her legacies grown in value as such. And the work that started out at Expo, the Expo project, we've spoken about the tight time frame, we've spoken about the ageing of the steel, we've spoken about the content and the material of the steel. So I think we've had a very comprehensive look. But what I found fascinating during our discussions that you're now off to Ireland next year. Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. And just with World Expo, I should say that you know, it was a really genuinely exciting, you know, event to be involved with, and there was a lot of good energy around, and I think it's known up in Brisbane, but it's certainly not generally known that, you know, I think without doubt that was the most significant exhibition of sculpture in Australia's history, with the amount of artists that came from overseas. Yeah, so for me, since World Expo, I've completed, you know, a lot of large-scale work in Australia, and actually quite a lot of projects, and, you know, large works in Spain and England, and Korea and Singapore and New Zealand. So I've sort of been really pleased with that. And then as part of the Lawn Sculpture Prize I won late last year, part of that was is to go to Ireland for a studio there for 6 months in Cork. Sorry, not 6 months, 6 weeks in Cork. So I'll be doing that in July to mid-August next year. which I think will be a great project, and I get a chance to look at sort of Celtic roots and Celtic art, which is already, you know, the sort of round forms have already had an influence on my work, and a lot of our own historical roots lie there as well.
It's a little bit Celtic, that piece actually.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's been a lot of different influences come in the work, and the, you know, the whirls and the twirls and things like that. There's a bit of Celtic stuff.
Yeah, I just realised when you talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's. Well, I think making sculpture in Australia right now is a very interesting one, but I think you know, the influence is actually quite diverse. So for my work right now, I'd say influences from Europe, you know, still have an influence on my work, but then influences from Indigenous culture here have an influence, influences from the Australian landscape. So the sources really come in, you know, I think from perhaps 5 or 6 different directions, and that's actually going to Ireland next year. In terms of trips I make like this, I'd rather make trips that I feel are significant cultural trips than trips involve perhaps total promotion as an artist, like something I see as culturally significant. I'd much prefer to spend my time on that than something I see as being perhaps, you know, in terms of PR significant.
Yeah.
Like, no,
career building.
I'd rather go to Ireland than to New York, to be honest with you. My choice.
Don't tell David Hinchcliffe that, who's one of our contributors who we've done a YouTube on, and Saving the Pagoda, plus a couple of other YouTubes, and he spoke particularly about his experiences of New York, and I'll tell you this funny story. So David's unloading his artwork and is taking it into the gallery for a major display there, and down the street walks the topless paparazzi. So David grabs this particularly attractive young lady and gets him to carry his artwork in, and it produced a blog and various other benefits for his artwork, which was a funny story. And on that funny story, I think we should conclude. Look, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming over too, Peter.
Look, it's really been enjoyable, and the series of YouTubes we've done here, I think it's enlightening, and it just adds to the mix and the depth of celebrating Expo 88, the 25th anniversary. And good morning, and thank you again.
Thank you.